So we'll see how it goes from there. Pastor, just let me know when we're live. We're live. Okay. Good morning. Uh, Live stream. Hopefully you guys are doing well out there. Suck Creek. I hope you guys uh enjoy this message today. We're in Galatians. I don't know if I said Corinthian. Galatians 5. We're going to start in Galatians 5. And I'm going to read the first 4 verses, and then we'll read the other 2 when it comes to that point. But right now it says, Galatians 5, stand fast, therefore you in the liberty wherefore Christ hath made us free, and be not entitled against the yoke of bondage. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you that if ye be circumcised, Christ shall not profit you nothing. For I testify against to every man that is circumcised that he is a debtor to be the whole law. Christ is become of no effort unto you. Whosoever of you are just by the law, ye are fallen from grace. Here's one of the ones that a lot of people get messed up with about works. And we talked about that several different times. I'm going to touch a little bit about that. But just to start off, right? You know, the first words Paul say in this is stand fast. And I never looked at the word stand fast as there's a positive stand fast and there's a negative stand fast there, right? And it's the same word, it's the same verse. And you're like, wait a minute, how can they be one word, but it means the same thing as a negative and a positive? Well, when Paul told the Christians to stand fast there in liberty, what he was saying is, and you know, there's only one other time the word stand fast. I'm going to go several different ways with this, but let me go back to this one. The negative and positive of stand fast, there's 2 meanings to that. And the first meaning, right, stand fast, is God says, stand fast and wait on me, wait on the blessings, and we'll move forward. Stand fast. I mean, put your feet together, stand. And there's people will tell you everything. I'm a football player and a military guy, right? So I know both ways that you see military, you put your feet together, you do like this. But you can take any military guy that does that and do it, and they'll fall over. This is not a stance that you're going to be standing in and take. But a football player, he gets like this, right? He's ready for something to hit him. And I watched the Buffalo game, I think it was, and the running back was coming down, or the kickoff, opening play, coming down. They hit each other, and the dude was out for the game. I mean, that dude stood fast. I mean, he lowered and bam, because you plant your feet and stand fast, you can take it. The other one where God said stand fast, he said put on the whole armor of God. You're going to stand fast and take on what the devil. This stand fast was wait on the blessing. Wait, we're going to move forward. You got to be prepared for what's coming. Right? That's the positive. The negative on the stand fast is we cannot go back into the law and sin. We got to stand fast and not do this no. Because we start backing up, right? Like I said, military, you can just knock me over. We just kind of stand here. And that's, remember when we were talking about the Galatians people here, where they were coming in and telling them, hey, they were tricking them and saying, you got to abide by the law. They said, look, the law is passed. You don't have to get circumcised, right? You don't have to. See, that's where us Christians, we get into too much routine that, to be saved, you got to be baptized. To be saved, you got to do this. Keep your, not all Baptists do, most Baptists don't do that. Religion, let me say religion, right? But you got to work for your religion. You can't sin no more. You can't, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, about being in bondage a little bit here. But this is one that we got to remember. When we're standing fast, it's not just to wait on the blessing and not move forward too quickly without God, because here's a lot of times Christians do, because I've seen it both ways. right? And I've been one of them Christians, and I think every Christian been there before, and you got to be careful, right? Because if you never done it, you just never had God's full blessing on you. I think sometimes when you get God's full blessing, you know what the biggest thing it's like a I don't even know how to explain a stream high that you just know God's there. You want to continually stay there. And what happens is a lot of times we're like, we can go further. Let me get ahead of God so that I can keep this. And that's where we make our mistake. We just need to stay there. We're in it. We're doing great, but we're like, but I remember last week when I talked about that yeah, we need to get it's what Jesus can do. And that's what Paul's saying here. Stand fast. Let's wait, right? Because God's got the blessing on us. You're saved, but don't retreat either. Don't go back into the law, right? Back in them days, men had to be circumcised, right? That was the law. So what about the women? I never even thought about that. That the men had to be circumcised to be stay in the religion. What about the women? What did they have to do to stay in the religion? They couldn't get circumcised. You know, I didn't even think about it. When that said that to me. I said, I didn't even think about that. Right? I mean, so that don't even apply to the women. So that don't even make a lot of sense. That's what kept them in the law. You know, and there's a lot of places that still preach that they want men to do it and the women don't have to. And that's where I'm like, well, I don't think God would want it that way. He wants us all to do it, right? And all to move forward. So we got to be careful there, right? Mostly not to step back into the law. A lot of times we get into laws like, oh, to be saved, you got to be baptized. Be saved, you got to do work. Be saved. No, to be saved, just trust in Jesus Christ. That's it. That's where Paul's saying, guys, because he's talking to Christians here. That's why when it goes into verse 4 and it says, ye are fallen from grace, he's not talking about losing salvation. See, that's where a lot of people get messed up. In verse 4, where he talks about you can fall from grace, what he's talking about, remember when I talked about when you're in that high, right? They're taking a step back. They're falling backwards into the tradition, into the law. And been there, done that too. I've been the one where I'm in the center of God's will, doing exact. Family's great, everything's great, right? And then I want to step up here and I'm running the bus ministry. I'm a Sunday school teacher. I'm teaching at a Christian school. I'm a basketball coach at a Christian school. I'm doing everything. The Lord, oh man, let's see what oops, that word I got in there, didn't it? See what I'm doing? And then all of a sudden, I noticed myself starting to fall back because I'm getting tired, getting wore out. It's because it wasn't what the Lord wanted me to do. It was what I wanted to do. That's where me and my wife, we have gotten better. Any decisions, any type of thing, we always go, you pray about it, I'll pray about it, and we'll pray about it. Because that's the best way to do it. When you get into that, that's one of the things you got to do as a married couple. Pray separate. There's nothing wrong with praying separate. Then bring it together. Because me and my wife, we've done that before too. She does devotion, I've done devotions, and then we would come and tell each other our devotion. We were keeping each other accountable on doing devotions, right? Now, she's better at it than I am because she takes notes, right? I'm bad at notes. Then she takes on notes what I'm saying. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, I could be wrong. This is what I got, not what God said to you. And she's like, hey, God told you. You're probably telling me too, right? And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'm telling you, you could write a memoirs, get her books that she's got. She's got, how many books do you probably have stuck away somewhere? Yeah, a lot, right? You could probably write books on these things that I've have said. She's got the letters that I wrote her in the military. You probably can't read them because it's Joe Bonics, right? But she still has them. I can't even read them. They were in my handwriting. I mean, that's how bad it is. She can read them. But she knows Joe Bonics. If you ever want to know it, talk to her. Right? But that's what I'm talking about, where we did these devotions. We try to keep each other in check because she'll tell me, Joe, do you think God really wants you to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I really do. And she's like, Let's pray about it a little more. And I pray about it, and then I can kind of see where God was leading her. And I'm like, yeah, you were right on that. Because like the car we were praying about, she's like, Joe, I'm prayed up on it. I know God got what you know what it is. You can go on your own. I bought that car by myself, right? Without her. And normally, ain't that the first vehicle I bought without you? Oh yeah, I called her. I still talk to her. Don't get me wrong. I don't. And she had the last say on it. I brung her up there and said, "What do you think?" And she still had the last say. But I went, said yes, I like it. She test rode it with me, but I ultimately said yes, I'll do it. And like I said, I prayed about it. I said my budget probably leaves me around 450. If it's anything more than that. And the first car she wasn't even there with, and he goes 700, and I was like, nope. Not even close. Let's try again. Right? I mean, he looked at me like, what are you looking for? And I said, not that. Right? I mean, it was a 2025 something or other. I don't even know what it was. I mean, I was like, nope, not that. I didn't like it anyway, looking at it. But then he came back and said, well, how about this car and everything like that? And I was like, okay, let me think about it. And I was like, yeah, that's not too bad. How much? And he goes, I think we can get it for 435. Actually, he said 452, and I was like, two ain't too bad. I don't know. He said, well, let me talk to my, and it came to 435 and some change in my price range. Let's do it. You know, and I even said this. I don't even claim that car still to be mine. That's a car God gave me. God's going to pay the bills on it. That's God's car. If he don't want me to have it, he will take it away from me. Right? It's not mine. It's his. Because the day I think I did something to get that car, that thing's going to be a piece of junk. You know, and I don't want that to be my car. I want it to be the Lord's car. And that's what Paul's telling us. Don't get in tradition, because if we get into a lot of tradition, it starts becoming a lot of I, me, myself. And that's where Paul's telling the Corinthians here, be careful about where you are in your traditions about circumcision, baptism, works. Don't get me wrong, right? I was looking at verse, I think it was um, 3, right? Well, that actually is a little bit further. I know it is. I'm already jumping ahead. I got 15 more minutes, so we'll see how this goes. But what it is I lost my train of thought because I see this. We'll go back to the lesson. We'll go back to the lesson. It says, routine. We were talking about the routines. They mean nothing, right? Applications. It says when we start depending on routines and good deeds, we don't draw closer to God. In fact, we push him away. We might not actually say that we don't need his grace, but the message we preach with our lives. And that's what I was saying. We got to be careful, because when we try to do it traditional, right? Let's do it our way. Let's do it my way instead of doing it his way. Because me and Pastor, we talked about it. We could fill up we could bring the rock group in and sell tickets and have this place booked up every Sunday, right? But that's not God's way, right? And that's one of the things that we do preach here. We're going to let God fill this church up. If it's 10 people, 20 people, 500 people, I don't know where we put them. But, I mean, maybe we have to open up the roof and let people lower people in. And yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. We're going to let God do it. We're going to let God take care of it. So be careful on the routine. Now, here's another one that I looked at, and it says, let me read this. Verse 5 and 6, it says, for we thought the Spirit waited for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Jesus Christ, neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. Here's where I was talking about a little bit about works a little bit earlier, right? Works is one of them things that we do for God for love. And see the thing where I was talking about, we're in the will of God, everything's going great, and God says, Joe, I need you to check this and get rid of this. If not, I will get rid of it for you, but it's going to cost you something. And then I'm like, no, 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 God, I know. And I try to jump ahead of God and fix it before God wants it to be fixed, because he wants me to get rid of that. And we jump ahead and we start trying to serve God our way. Like, I can fix church being empty really quick, I mean, pastor kid too, right? But God's like, no, wait here. We'll get rid of that issue. We'll move forward. We'll get taken care of. But I need you to take care of this issue. But then that's when I'm starting to take a step back, because I'm like, no, I want to. And that's what I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago. Could have been last week, where I'm talking about we like to hold on to the old creature, right? When it passed away, right? My dad passed away many years ago. I still have his Dallas Cowboy jacket. I still have the flag, the military tags, right? I held on to things of my dad that passed away. That's not what they're talking about here. Don't get me wrong. That's okay to hold on to loved ones, memorabilia. Yeah, yeah. Y'all know what I'm saying. All right. So that stuff is okay. But what they're talking about is the sinful stuff, the things you hurt God with. Because a lot of us will say, and people at work get me this all the time. And you hate when somebody's right, but you it just, because how many of y'all watch a show that's got one cuss word in it, and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. Is it okay? Right? It still bothers me, because I'm like, I watch the movies Left Behind. I like the movies, I really do. I like the ones with what is the ones we watch? Fireproof, all them. They're good movies, but they got some undoctoral truths in them that are wrong. And somebody says, so why do you watch it? Well, because they got a lot of good in it. And they're like, but you watch it. Ain't that wrong? You shouldn't watch it. And I'm like, but they're right. They're kind of right. I'm wrong on that. And it bothers me because I am wrong. Right. And you go, well, if God's not dealing with you with that, don't worry about it. This is something that Brother Joe is dealing with God. Right. But that's what I was telling you weeks ago. Don't worry about the beam in your brother, or the beaming, or the splinter in your brother's eye. Worry about the beam. And that's a beam in my eye right now. Nothing you guys got to worry about. But it does bother me, because what do we let in our lives that the old creature passed away with, that we bring back into the new creature? And we're like, oh, that's okay. We could do that. I'll keep that in my pocket. Right. And that's where Paul's telling these guys is, you're going to take, because you try to stand fast. Right. You ever watch football players? They got helmets, pads, shoulder, and they're standing there. Imagine if they had a backpack on. What's going to happen? It's going to make them lean back. They're going to end up getting blown. They don't wear a backpack. Why? Because there's no use to them. It don't help them any. And that's where we're putting stuff in our backpacks, and we're trying to stand fast against the devil, and we're waiting on God, but it's no use to us. And we're putting stuff in it that we don't need in it. And we all do it. And that's where Paul said that. And here's something else Paul said, right? And I broke down, read this. So bear with me, because y'all know my reading ain't all that great, but I want to read it. It says, easy to fall out of balance. However, if we get too focused on our labor for Christ, we can forget what we have depended on Christ for grace. So we get too focused on serving Christ, we forget what we depend on Christ. And see, that's where a lot of religious people, they get so much on the works, they forgot what they depended on, right? Because we depend on his blessings daily. Read on. On the other side, we can become so sober with our future in heaven that we forget there's still work to be done. We can get so fixated on heaven that we forgot we still got, because how many times do you ever see some older Christians, right? I've seen it many times. They get in the church and they're ready just to go to heaven. They're not serving. They're not talking to the. You know what the greatest thing? I went to Shenandoah Baptist Church for years, and you know what I love? Harrison, I think his first name was. Old guy, short, oldest. What? Henry, is his name Henry? The oldest short guy in church. His wife just passed away. Yes, right? Him, right? He would go to every teenager and talk to him. And he jokes. I mean, he's the funniest guy you ever meet. The war stories that I've heard. He was sitting in a ship that got hit with a missile, right? And the turn that he got, every man in that area died except him because he crawled through an area, right, and barely survived. And he's telling me this story. I'm like, man, and all I did was just serve my country. I mean, I was never in a battle where enemy was shooting at me and I'm shooting at them. Right? I mean, I was never in them battles. But hear men talk about this, right? But he's sitting there. He's a godly man on his way to heaven. He now lost his wife, right? I could see him being bitter and just say, all right, I'm ready to die. But that man still gets up, talk to the teenager, talk to you. He can't see. Somebody drives him, right? His wife always let him, and he would just talk to you. He recognized your voice and talk to you, right? And here's a person that could be bitter, but he's still giving testimony because he knows that we get so focused on where we're going, we forget what we're doing. I can get like that, man. I'm on my way to heaven. We got nothing else to prove. I've served God for over 25 years in the ministry. I've done this. You hear what I'm saying, though? The eyes coming in real quick. See, that's where we get so messed up. See what God let me do. See what God's done. See what God's moving me. See what God's done. You know, what is God going to do tomorrow? Not what Brother Joe's going to do. I mean, God's doing this with me, with this here, because what God, it's not what I'm doing. It's not me. I never wanted to be me. If you guys told me that God was moving and we're going to have 50 people in here, but you have to go to another church tomorrow, if that's what God said, hey, I'll be at another church tomorrow. Right? And there'll be 50 people in here. And that's where I would go because that's what God said. Now, you said, hey, God's going to put 50 people in here and it's going to just tear the church apart. But God needs you there. I'll still be here with the church being torn apart with the 50 people and dealing with it because that's where God wants me. My wife will tell you how many years I worked 10 years at Mueller. Tell you everybody, day one, what did I say? I hated that job and wanted out of there. 10 years. I said, God, why do you have me here? God, what do you have me here? If it was nothing, no, it's not TJ from Shenandoah. There's TJ at Mueller Company that was an atheist. All right? Nicest guy you ever want to meet. I mean, sweet, but he was a devil worshiper, had the star on his head, had a bunch of tattoos, but the star was the biggest thing. And every day at lunch, I would talk to several people like I'm talking here, talking about God. You know who beat me up mostly about doing that? Other Christians. They would tell you shouldn't do that in here. And I'm like, I thought you were a Christian. Yeah, but then not at work. Why not? I'm a Christian wherever I'm at. You know, when does it stop? And then one of them came back and apologized to me. He said, you know, I noticed TJ was in there and he knew where TJ was. He said, I'm sorry for doing that. Right? Later. But during lunchtime, he was putting me down for doing it. And I'm like, if you don't want to listen, you can go somewhere else. Until HR tells me to stop, I'm going to do it, you know? I mean, because God said do it. And then I might even still try to do it, you know? Because if God tells you to do something, do it. And that was just something. And I would come home. My wife would get more mad at me than anything because she would make me something for lunch and I'd bring it home. And she's like, why did you bring this home? You didn't eat it. I was preaching in lunch. I didn't get a chance to eat, you know. I mean, you don't eat and preach at the same time, you know. So I'm talking, the buzzer rings, and I'm like, well, I guess I ain't eating that until later. And she's like, you wasting food. I'm like, I'm putting food up in heaven for me, you know. I mean, so the Lord knows. And that's where I think that we got to be careful on a lot of stuff that we do Because are we doing it in God's name? Are we getting ahead of them? That's where Paul said, wait. That's why when we first read, he said, stand fast, right? And then he said, but at the end, he said, we're doing this for Christ, but we're not, don't fall out of the grace of God. You stand fast so you don't fall out of the grace, right? So them 6 verses put together, we're trying to stand fast for the Lord, but we're not trying to fall out of the grace of God. Falling out of the grace of God is not falling out of salvation. That's the biggest one that a lot of these false teachers are teaching. You can lose your salvation, because I've always been, that is the dumbest thing you could ever think, that your God is not powerful to save you once and for all once you trust in Jesus. Because then if that's true, why don't you just wait till the last second, which you never know when it is, and say, okay, I'll trust you now, because you're going to fall out of sin or out of Christ almost daily. I mean, might as well fill up the baptism every week. We all just stand in line. All right, salvation, baptism. Next week we'll do it again, because we're all going to fall out of God's grace, not His grace, but out of walk with Him almost daily, because we're going to do something stupid. That's why we always ask for repentance. We pray, God, forgive me for what I've had done, right? As I forgive them who trespass against me, right? Don't prove that, but that's where God's given us that example. Pray, God, please, you know what I've done wrong. Help me here while I'm trying to survive, move forward with you, because I'm standing fast for your blessing. Don't be the gun ho one. Yeah, I watch. Well, I'm an old soul, so I watch a lot of war movies over the years. You ever see the guy that runs out first? He's the first one dead, or the first one that hits a landmine, right? And Christians, the soldiers, are the same way, right? They're the first one, not dead, but falls out of Christ or blows up, and then they're the first one to fall back into the law. They're still saved. They still love God, right? And some of them, here's the craziest one, though. And somebody said, well, God don't allow sin in heaven. No, He don't. If you fall out of the grace of God, you're still saved. And you're like, well, God ain't going to allow, right? You're saying one saved. Yes, one saved, always saved. Because once you're a child of God, I mean, most of y'all are mothers in here. If you've had a kid, or you know somebody that has a kid, that kid has left their nest and don't have nothing to do with them. Is it still not their kid? Right? Even when somebody gives up a baby for adoption, realistically, it's still their kid. It's still their child, even though they gave it up for adoption and somebody else is raising. That same thing as Christ. You're going to be a child of God no matter what, because once you're in the family, you never leave the family. Now, you might not be welcome to every family outing, the cookouts and stuff like that. That's where you look at it like that. God's not going to honor and bless you, and you go, oh, but I got a better paying job. Then you start getting in an eye. Yeah, everything I do don't end up being worth anything. It won't put nothing up in the heaven for you. It won't help you on earth to be a better person for God. And that's where it says works. Our works has got to be in love. That's one of the things I wanted to also say. When we do works, it's because we love God. You ever notice you do stuff for your spouse or some family member? You don't do it because they got you something. You do it because you love them. And that's what we do with God. We don't do the things for God because we want to get more stuff from God. We do it because we love Him. And that's where, if we stay in the frame of heaven with God, we'll do it in love. The more we love God, the more we'll do with God, and we'll stay in that. We won't run in front of Him, because anytime I ever bought my wife without thinking something, she's like, yeah, I can tell, right? You know, because they look at it like, what were you thinking, right? Yeah, but when you bought something, you thought about it, and it was that special, you just seen the eyes light up and like, and you're like, yes, I nailed it. Same thing with God. Same thing with God. When you do stuff for God, and you can just see his eyes light up. You just feel the blessing on you. And a lot of that release, that pressure, a lot of our depression, our stress stuff, it comes because we're not standing, we're not here, and we're not lighting up the eyes of God because we're not doing what His will. And that's what he's saying. He's telling us here. We need to stay focused, stand fast, and not go backwards, but wait on God, and we can light up His eyes. We got about 30 minutes before Brother Hargrave's going to come up and be with us. I guess Pastor can come up in 15 minutes and do announcements and everything like that, so we can give him plenty of time today. So I only went a minute over, so it ain't too bad. Well, let me pray with you guys and let you take a break.